Have you ever found yourself awake in the still of the night, not from worry or wonder, but because nature called once more? For us folks in our 60s and 70s, those repeated trips to the bathroom can turn restful evenings into restless ones. You go to bed hoping for a full night's sleep, the kind that refreshes your spirit, but instead you're up and down, feeling the weight of it by dawn. It's a common chapter in this stage of life, one that makes you reflect on all the years behind and the comfort we still seek. Yet what if a simple fruit, right there in your kitchen, could help soften that pattern? I discovered just such a way, and I'd like to share how it brought more quiet to my nights. This video is for general educational and inspirational purposes only. Please reflect and consult professionals when applying life lessons. It was about 3 years ago, shortly after I turned 65. The days still held their familiar rhythm, mornings spent watering the rose bushes my wife had planted decades earlier, afternoons reading the paper on the porch or meeting a friend for coffee at the diner downtown. Evenings brought the comfort of routine, supper shared with family when they could come, then settling into the quiet house as the light faded. Bedtime arrived around 10, the same hour it had for most of my working life. I would ease under the covers, grateful for the soft mattress and the familiar creak of the old house settling for the night. Yet sleep no longer came in one unbroken stretch. Around 1 o'clock the familiar pressure would pull me awake. I'd shuffle down the hallway in the dark, careful not to wake anyone, then return to bed hoping the interruption was finished. More often than not, another visit came before dawn, sometimes at 3, sometimes closer to 4. By morning my eyes felt heavy, my thoughts slower, and the small aches in my back and knees seemed sharper than they should. It wasn't pain or illness, it was simply the steady wearing away of rest. Those fragmented nights accumulated, quietly draining the energy I wanted to bring to the grandchildren's visits, the weekend walks, the simple pleasure of a clear-headed morning. This wasn't a sudden crisis. It arrived gradually, the way many changes do after 60, and because it felt ordinary I almost accepted it as part of growing older. Still, in the stillness between those trips to the bathroom, I found myself reflecting on how precious unbroken rest had become. I thought about the years behind me, the long days of raising children, building a career, caring for parents, and realized I wanted the years ahead to feel lighter, more rested, more present. That quiet longing opened the door to small, patient adjustments. The kind of changes that don't demand dramatic effort but honor the body we've carried this far. One evening, as the kitchen light glowed softly over the table, my neighbor Ellen stopped by with a small basket of fruit from her son's farm. We'd known each other since our children were small, shared decades of neighborhood stories, and still checked in when life felt heavy. Over cups of chamomile tea, the talk drifted to sleep, or the lack of it. She laughed quietly about her own restless nights and how she'd grown tired of feeling half awake every morning. Then she mentioned something simple she had started doing a few months earlier. She ate a banana each evening, usually around 7 or 8 o'clock, nothing fancy, just one ripe banana peeled and eaten slowly. At first it sounded too ordinary to matter, but she explained that she had read in a health newsletter, and later confirmed with her doctor, that bananas contain potassium and a small amount of magnesium, minerals that help the body relax muscles and nerves as the day winds down. More importantly, they provide a gentle source of natural sugars paired with fiber, which can steady blood sugar through the night instead of letting it dip sharply and trigger the bladder to wake us. She wasn't promising miracles, only that after a couple of weeks the trips to the bathroom had spaced out noticeably. The main insight stayed with me long after she left. In these later decades, the most meaningful changes often hide in plain sight. They don't require expensive supplements, strict diets, or drastic routines. They ask only for curiosity, a willingness to try one small, sensible thing, and the patience to let our bodies respond in their own time. Wisdom at this age isn't always about grand revelations. Sometimes it's about trusting that a humble piece of fruit, eaten thoughtfully, can quietly support the rest we've earned. I decided there was no harm in testing it myself, No risk in adding one gentle habit that honored how the body works rather than fighting against it. That single conversation shifted my perspective from resignation to quiet experiment, and it reminded me that listening, really listening, to what helps even a little can still bring comfort when we need it most. As the weeks turned into months, the change settled in quietly, the way good things often do at this age. The 1 o'clock awakenings became occasional rather than nightly. The 3 or 4 o'clock trips faded to once, sometimes not at all. I began waking in the soft gray light of morning with a sense of having truly rested, muscles looser, mind clearer, the small fog that used to linger behind my eyes gone. Mornings felt different. I moved through the house with steadier steps, brewed coffee without that dull heaviness in my limbs, and stepped outside to water the roses feeling present instead of half present. The difference showed in small, everyday moments. When my grandson called to tell me about his soccer game, I listened fully, without the distraction of lingering fatigue. On weekend walks with old friends, conversation flowed easier because my thoughts weren't slowed by broken sleep. Even the simple act of reading in the afternoon chair became more enjoyable. The words stayed on the page instead of blurring away. I noticed how much energy I had carried forward from those fuller nights. Energy for tending the garden longer, for laughing longer at family stories, for sitting quietly on the porch without the pull of tiredness. It reminded me of something many of us discover in these later years. The body still responds to care, even when we think the best years for change have passed. Those fewer interruptions didn't erase every challenge of aging, but they returned a measure of control and comfort we sometimes forget we can reclaim. The nights felt more like mine again, a gentle reclaiming of rest that had slipped away unnoticed. And in that reclaiming, I found a deeper appreciation for the small choices that honor the life we've lived and the life still left to live. The practice itself remained uncomplicated, as the best ones often do in later years. Each evening, around 7 or 8 o'clock, well before bedtime, I would select one ripe banana from the bowl on the counter. I preferred them with a few brown spots, the kind that signal natural sweetness without being overripe. No special preparation was needed. I simply peeled it, ate it slowly while sitting at the kitchen table or reading the evening paper, sometimes with a cup of herbal tea alongside. Consistency mattered more than perfection. On days when the house was busy with family, I still made sure to have that one banana. Some evenings I sliced it over plain yogurt for variety, or paired it with a small handful of unsalted almonds, but the core habit stayed the same, a modest serving of banana as the evening wound down. I avoided eating it too close to bedtime, giving the body several hours to process the potassium, magnesium, and steady carbohydrates it offered. Over the first month, the pattern shifted gradually. The single awakening at 1 became rarer. The second one often disappeared entirely. When interruptions did occur, they felt briefer, less jarring. The bladder seemed less insistent, as though the gentle mineral support and stable blood sugar had quieted the usual nighttime signals. I kept no strict log, but the calendar in my mind marked the improvement. Fewer dark trips down the hallway, more mornings that began with genuine refreshment rather than recovery. What surprised me most was how little effort it required. No measuring, no complicated recipes, no expensive additions to the shopping list. Just one familiar fruit, eaten mindfully at roughly the same time each day. That simplicity reinforced the quiet truth I had begun to accept. At this stage, the gentlest interventions often yield the steadiest results, allowing the body to find its own balance without force or fanfare. So here we are, friends, at the close of this small, true story from one person in his later years to others walking the same road. What began as those quiet, interrupted nights, those familiar trips down a darkened hallway, slowly gave way to longer stretches of rest. Not through force or fancy remedies, but through one modest choice repeated with care. A banana eaten in the early evening, its gentle potassium and steady sweetness helping the body settle more peacefully as the hours passed. The gift wasn't dramatic. There were no sudden transformations or overnight cures. Instead, the change arrived the way dawn does, gradual, reliable, welcomed without fanfare. Fewer awakenings meant mornings that started with a clearer head and a body that felt lighter. Days opened with more presence. Conversations lingered a little longer, laughter came more easily, and the simple routines of home felt renewed rather than endured. The garden received fuller attention, the porch chair held me without the drag of yesterday's fatigue, and the grandchildren's stories landed with the fullness they deserved. This experience left me with a quiet certainty. After 60, the body still listens when we speak to it kindly. It doesn't demand perfection or grand gestures. It responds to consistency, to small habits chosen thoughtfully and carried out without rush. We've lived long enough to know that not every problem needs a complicated answer. Sometimes the gentlest path, the one that fits easily into the rhythm we already have, is the one that brings the most lasting ease. In the end, those fuller nights became a reminder of something deeper. Rest is not a luxury we lose with age, but a quiet companion we can still invite back. It waits patiently for us to notice what helps, to try what feels sensible, and to trust that even now, small acts of care can return comfort we thought had slipped away for good. May your own nights grow gentler in their own time, and may you find the simple things that serve you well. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, subscribe to The Quiet Start for more gentle wisdom stories for seniors, and share it with a friend over 60 who needs better nights. Comment below, what small change helped you?